Wildlife safaris promise adventure, beauty, and unforgettable encounters, but the wild can turn deadly in an instant. When humans step into the territory of powerful animals, even experience and preparation offer no guarantees. From sudden charges to brutal attacks, some safari journeys have ended in shocking loss of life. These 5 disturbing cases reveal the dark side of wildlife safaris and serve as stark reminders that nature's most breathtaking moments can also be its most dangerous. A routine family outing to Kruger National Park had turned into a devastating tragedy when a 59-year-old man was killed after being trampled by an elephant. What began as a moment of exploration in one of South Africa's most iconic conservation areas ended with the loss of a life during an act of desperate courage. The incident had taken place near the Lane reception area, close to the Crocodile River, a region known for its dense vegetation and frequent movement of large wildlife. The family had parked their vehicle in the area, likely believing they were at a safe distance from danger. However, in national parks such as Kruger, safety could shift in seconds. Wildlife did not recognize boundaries, and animals often moved silently through bushland that appeared calm and empty at first glance. At some point, children from the group had moved ahead, passing a nearby bridge and entering the surrounding bush. Whether driven by curiosity or a momentary lapse in supervision, the children's movement brought them dangerously close to a herd of elephants that had been nearby but not immediately visible. Elephants, despite their reputation for intelligence and social bonds, were highly sensitive to perceived threats, especially when calves were present or when humans approached unexpectedly. Witnesses later described how an elephant from the herd had suddenly charged. The change from calm to chaos had been instant. In the wild, such charges often happened without warning, leaving little time to react. Seeing the children in imminent danger, the grandfather had rushed forward in an attempt to intervene and draw them away from harm. It was an instinctive response, one rooted in protection rather than calculation. That decision proved fatal. As he moved toward the children, one of the elephants pursued him. The sheer size and power of the animal left no room for escape. He was knocked down and trampled, sustaining severe injuries. Despite efforts by those nearby to assist him, he succumbed to his injuries at the scene. The incident occurred on January 25th, marking a day that would forever alter his family's lives. The victim was later identified as Sheikh Adam Shaber Ahmed, a 59-year-old resident of Mkondo, a town in South Africa's Mpumalanga province, southeast of Johannesburg. News of his death quickly spread, prompting an outpouring of shock and sorrow. Many who learned of the incident focused on the circumstances of his final moments, particularly the fact that he had reportedly been trying to protect his grandchild when he was killed. Park officials explained that identifying the specific elephant involved had not been possible. Several elephants had been in the vicinity at the time, and they had moved away shortly after the incident. In wildlife environments, such outcomes were not uncommon. Animals reacted instinctively and then retreated, leaving behind little evidence that could distinguish one individual from another. This reality made it difficult to assign responsibility in the way people might expect in human-centered investigations. Authorities described the event as deeply unfortunate and emphasized the importance of allowing the investigation to proceed without speculation. The South African Police Service had opened an inquiry into the death, while park management confirmed that they were fully cooperating with law enforcement. Officials made it clear that no further updates would be available until the police completed and submitted their final report. Park management also appealed to the public to show restraint and compassion. In the aftermath of such incidents, speculation often spread rapidly, particularly on social media, where incomplete information could fuel misunderstanding or misplaced blame. Officials stressed that the family deserved the space to mourn privately and with dignity, without their loss becoming a subject of public conjecture. Kruger National Park had long emphasized safety guidelines designed to prevent exactly such incidents. Visitors were repeatedly advised to remain in their vehicles, keep a safe distance from animals, and never allow children to wander ahead or enter bushland on foot. These rules were not arbitrary. They were grounded in decades of experience and hard-earned lessons about animal behavior. When those boundaries were crossed, even unintentionally, the consequences could be severe. In this case, the tragedy unfolded not because of recklessness alone, but because of how quickly circumstances had changed. What may have seemed like a harmless moment became life-threatening within seconds. The grandfather's response, driven by love and urgency, reflected a human instinct that often overrode fear. His actions were widely seen as an attempt to shield his family, even at great personal risk. Park authorities expressed their condolences to the Amit family, acknowledging the profound loss they had suffered. The incident highlighted a difficult truth. While national parks offered unparalleled opportunities to experience nature, they demanded constant awareness and respect for the dangers that accompanied that privilege. Roland Cherry considers himself extraordinarily fortunate to be alive after surviving a brutal hippopotamus attack during what was meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime holiday in Africa. The 63-year-old, an experienced canoeist from Warwickshire in England, was on a 5-week trip through southern Africa with his wife, Shirley, when the couple joined a guided canoe safari along Zambia's Zambezi River in June. It turned into a terrifying fight for survival. As their group paddled quietly along the river, their canoe suddenly drifted far closer to a hippopotamus than anyone realized. Without warning, the massive animal surged upward, lifting the canoe clean out of the water with its body. Cherry later described the initial impact as shockingly violent, comparing the sound and force to a car crash. The canoe reared upward and flipped, throwing both him and his wife into the river in an instant. Shirley managed to swim to the riverbank, but Cherry was not so lucky. In the chaos of the capsizing canoe, he dislocated his shoulder, leaving him effectively unable to swim properly. The group's safety instructions had been to head straight for shore if anything went wrong, but with one arm useless, Cherry found himself helpless in the water. He later recalled realizing, with chilling clarity, that he was completely vulnerable. Moments later, the hippopotamus attacked. Cherry was seized in the animal's jaws and dragged beneath the surface of the river. As he was pulled down into the depths, he believed his life was coming to an end. The river felt impossibly deep, and the sheer power of the animal left him with no control over his fate. He later described thinking that this was a horrifying way to die, far from home, in a place he had come to admire for its natural beauty. At the bottom of the river, the hippo unexpectedly released him. Cherry's life jacket buoyed him upward, lifting him back toward the surface. He counted to 10 as he rose, trying to stay calm despite the pain and panic. When he finally broke the surface and gulped in air, there was a brief moment of relief. That relief vanished almost immediately when the hippopotamus attacked him again, grabbing him once more and flinging him violently through the water like a toy. This time, however, fate intervened. The force of the toss sent him closer to the riverbank, allowing him to painfully drag himself to safety. Sitting on the shore, Cherry took stock of his injuries as others rushed to help him. The damage was severe. The hippopotamus had inflicted deep bite wounds to both of his legs and one of his upper arms, tearing through flesh and clothing. Blood covered much of his lower body, and the dislocated shoulder added to his agony. Looking down at his injuries, Cherry immediately knew how serious the situation was. Pieces of torn flesh were visible through his shredded shorts, and the risk of infection was frighteningly real. Despite eyewitnesses later confirming that Cherry had been held fully inside the animal's jaws, he said he had no conscious memory of seeing the hippo while it attacked him. The trauma was so overwhelming that his mind seemed to block out parts of the experience. What remained, however, was the physical devastation and the urgent need for medical care. Plans were initially made to airlift Cherry to a major hospital, but when the air ambulance failed to arrive at a nearby village, he was taken instead to Mtendre Mission General Hospital, a small local facility. Cherry later reflected that this unexpected change almost certainly saved his life. Doctors at the mission hospital acted quickly, thoroughly cleaning his wounds and closing them to prevent sepsis. Their swift response stabilized him enough for transfer to Mill Park Hospital in Johannesburg, where he underwent 6 additional surgeries to repair the extensive damage caused by the attack. As Cherry recovered, he found himself deeply moved by the compassion and dedication of the people who helped him survive. many of whom were complete strangers. Lying in his hospital bed, he had time to reflect on how close he had come to death and how dependent he had been on the kindness of others. That gratitude inspired him and Shirley to give something back. The couple began raising funds to support Matendre Mission Hospital, hoping to help purchase medical equipment that could save lives in the future, just as the hospital had saved his. By the time their fundraising effort gained public attention, they had already reached close to 90% of their goal, a testament to how powerfully Cherry's story resonated with others. Now, continuing his recovery at home, Cherry has since learned that the hippopotamus involved in the attack was likely a mother protecting her calf. This knowledge has helped him make sense of what happened, even if it does not lessen the trauma. Asher Watkins had spent much of his life outdoors, surrounded by wide-open land, wildlife, and the traditions of hunting that shaped his identity. At 52, the Texas native believed he understood the risks that came with pursuing dangerous game. Yet, even experience and preparation could not protect him from the brutal unpredictability of the wild. On August 3rd, during a hunting safari in South Africa's Limpopo province, Watkins was killed while tracking one of Africa's most feared animals, the Cape buffalo. Watkins was on an organized hunting expedition run by Coenraad Wehrmacht Safaris, a well-known outfitter in the region. The trip had taken him deep into the bush, where dense vegetation, uneven terrain, and limited visibility can quickly turn a controlled hunt into a deadly encounter. On that Sunday, Watkins was following the trail of a massive Cape buffalo, weighing approximately 1.3 tons. The animal had not been wounded, a detail that later underscored just how sudden and unexpected the attack was. According to accounts released after the incident, Watkins was accompanied by a professional hunter and an experienced tracker when the situation escalated without warning. In a matter of seconds, the buffalo charged. These animals are capable of reaching speeds of around 35 miles per hour, and when they attack, there is often little time to react. The sheer force of such a large animal, combined with its aggression when threatened, makes escape nearly impossible at close range. Watkins was fatally injured in the charge, dying at the scene. The safari company confirmed his death in a statement filled with grief, describing Watkins not only as a client, but also as a friend. They emphasized that the attack was sudden and unprovoked, a grim reminder of how dangerous Cape buffalo can be even when hunters follow established safety procedures. The company also expressed deep sympathy for Watkins' family and said it was providing support to relatives both in South Africa and back in the United States as they struggled to come to terms with the loss. At the time of the attack, members of Watkins' family were waiting for him back at the safari lodge. His brother, Eamon, along with his mother Gwen and stepfather Tony, were nearby, expecting him to return from the hunt. Instead, they were faced with devastating news. The safari company also reached out to Watkins's teenage daughter and his former wife Courtney, acknowledging the wide circle of people affected by the tragedy. Cape buffalo are infamous among hunters and wildlife experts alike. Often referred to as one of Africa's most dangerous animals, they have earned a reputation for aggression, strength, and an unpredictable temperament. Safari operators frequently warn clients that these animals are responsible for numerous deaths and serious injuries every year. Unlike predators that may flee when confronted, Cape buffalo are known to charge without hesitation, especially if they feel threatened. Many experienced hunters consider them more dangerous than lions or leopards because of their size, speed, and tendency to attack head-on. Watkins's former wife later confirmed his death publicly, describing it as a sudden and tragic accident. Her words reflected the shock and disbelief felt by those closest to him, as well as the emotional weight of trying to process such a violent and unexpected loss. For his family, the reality of his death was still difficult to put into words as they faced the days ahead without him. Back in Texas, Watkins was known not just for his love of hunting, but also for his professional life and devotion to his family. His death adds to a long history of fatal encounters between humans and Cape buffalo, animals whose fearsome reputation is rooted in countless similar incidents. A long-serving zookeeper in Thailand has died in a shocking and violent lion attack at Safari World Bangkok, an incident that has reignited debate over the risks of keeping powerful wild animals in captivity for public display. The tragedy unfolded in front of stunned tourists, some of whom reportedly filmed the attack, turning an ordinary visit to a popular attraction into a scene of horror. The victim was identified as 58-year-old Jian Rangkarasamai, a veteran animal handler with more than 20 years of experience working closely with large predators, including lions and tigers. According to local media reports, the fatal incident occurred on Wednesday morning inside the zoo's lion enclosure. Jian had exited his work vehicle, allegedly to retrieve something from the ground, when the situation took a sudden and deadly turn. Authorities later confirmed that leaving the vehicle inside the enclosure violated established safety protocols. These rules are designed to protect staff from exactly this kind of danger, as lions, no matter how familiar they may seem, remain apex predators with powerful instincts. Witnesses told local outlets that at least 3 lions rushed Jian, dragged him to the ground, and mauled him. The attack reportedly lasted around 15 minutes before fellow staff members were able to intervene and pull him away. Jian was rushed to Intrarat Hospital, where medical teams attempted to save him. Despite their efforts, he was later pronounced dead due to the severity of his injuries. For his colleagues, many of whom had worked alongside him for years, the loss was devastating. For onlookers who witnessed the attack, the images and sounds of the incident are likely to remain deeply traumatic. According to the Bangkok Post, this is the first fatal lion attack reported at Safari World in more than 4 decades of operation. That fact has only intensified public shock, as the park has long promoted itself as a controlled and professionally managed environment. Jian himself was considered highly experienced and was responsible for guiding and managing animals within the exhibit, making the tragedy even harder for many to comprehend. In a public statement, Safari World expressed its deepest condolences to Jian's family and promised full care and support for his loved ones. The zoo also announced it would urgently review its safety procedures in light of the incident. Following the attack, Safari World was temporarily closed as authorities began investigations into what went wrong. Wildlife officials have launched a formal inquiry to examine multiple aspects of the incident. Investigators are looking into whether the lions at Safari World are properly registered under Thai law, and whether the design and management of the enclosures meet required safety standards. The investigation will also assess staff training, protocol enforcement, and whether systemic failures contributed to the fatal outcome. Animal welfare organizations have weighed in as well. The Wildlife Friends Foundation Thailand stated that while Safari World's safety record generally appeared to align with international standards, the incident highlighted the inherent dangers of keeping large predators in captivity. According to the group, no matter how carefully facilities are managed, housing dangerous wildlife always carries serious risks for both humans and animals. Experts point out that lions do not lose their natural hunting and defensive instincts simply because they are raised or kept in captivity. Enclosures, routines, and training may reduce risk, but they cannot eliminate it. A single moment of vulnerability, such as stepping outside a vehicle, can be enough to trigger a fatal response. When attacks occur, the animals are often blamed, despite behaving according to instincts that humans have knowingly placed themselves near. The tragedy has also sparked broader discussion about wildlife safety in Thailand. Fatal encounters between humans and wild animals are not uncommon in the country, particularly outside captive settings. Officials have previously reported that wild elephants alone have been responsible for more than 200 human deaths nationwide over the past 12 years. These figures highlight the ongoing challenges Thailand faces in balancing wildlife conservation, tourism, and human safety. For many observers, Jian Rangkarasamai's death is not just an isolated workplace accident, but a stark reminder of the limits of control when humans interact with powerful wild animals. His decades of experience did not protect him from a momentary breach of safety, underscoring how unforgiving such environments can be. As investigations continue, questions remain about whether stricter regulations, better enforcement, or a fundamental rethinking of wildlife tourism is needed. What is certain is that a life was lost in a brutal and public way, leaving behind grieving family members, shaken colleagues, and an industry forced to confront the risks it asks people to take. Paul Templar's encounter with a hippopotamus on the Zambezi River is one of the most harrowing wildlife survival stories ever told. A moment that transformed an experienced safari guide's life in seconds and left him permanently changed. What should have been a routine day guiding tourists through one of Africa's most beautiful waterways instead became a brutal fight for survival against one of the continent's deadliest animals. In 1996, Templar was leading a small group of 6 people on a canoe safari along the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe, near the majestic stretch approaching Victoria Falls. Though he was highly experienced and deeply familiar with the river, the day began with an unsettling sense that something was wrong. A fellow guide who was originally meant to lead the trip had fallen ill with malaria, and Templar stepped in at the last minute. He later described the feeling as an unshakable sense of dread, an intuition that the day was not unfolding as it should. Despite that unease, the opportunity to guide a safari along such a spectacular section of river was irresistible. The Zambezi is often described as one of the most beautiful rivers in the world, but it is also one of the most dangerous, home to crocodiles and hippos that fiercely defend their territory. As the group paddled forward, the calm surface of the water hid the threat lurking beneath. The danger revealed itself suddenly when a hippopotamus rammed one of the canoes, knocking Templar's close friend into the river. Without hesitation, Templar paddled toward him, focused only on rescue. As he moved through the water, he noticed strange ripples racing toward him just beneath the surface, like a torpedo slicing through the river. Before he could react, everything went black. In an instant, Templar realized he was trapped. He wasn't fully submerged like his legs were, but his upper body felt tightly wedged in a confined, crushing space. Disoriented and unable to move, he understood with horrifying clarity that he was inside the mouth or throat of a massive animal. As he slowly moved his fingers, he felt coarse bristles and instantly knew the truth. He had been swallowed by a hippopotamus. The sensation was nightmarish. The interior was slick, wet, and suffocating, reeking of a stench he later compared to rotten eggs. He was stunned by how far inside the animal he was, especially given his size. Panic threatened to overwhelm him, but instinct took over. Groping blindly, he managed to grab hold of the hippo's tusks and push with everything he had. With a desperate surge of strength, he forced himself free and burst back to the surface, gasping for air. But the ordeal was far from over. Moments later, the hippo attacked again. This time, it grabbed Templar feet first, thrashing him violently through the water like a toy. He struggled desperately to avoid drowning as the animal tossed him around before releasing him once more. As he tried to swim toward safety, exhausted and bleeding, he saw the hippo charging straight at him with its jaws wide open. The animal struck again, dragging him down to the riverbed. Lying at the bottom, Templar was horrifyingly aware that he was once again half inside the hippo's mouth. Through the murky water, he could see sunlight shimmering above, green and blue light dancing across the surface. Around him, his blood spread through the river, mixing with the current. It was a surreal, terrifying moment, one in which he believed death was inevitable. Against all odds, help arrived. One of Templar's friends showed extraordinary courage, paddling toward him through the danger and pulling him free. Tragically, the friend who had been knocked from his canoe earlier did not survive and drowned during the chaos, adding another devastating loss to the incident. Severely injured, Templar endured an agonizing 8-hour journey to the hospital without pain relief. By the time he reached Victoria Falls Hospital, doctors had no choice but to amputate his left arm to save his life. He had suffered 39 major bite wounds, injuries that would permanently reshape his body and future.